Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, we're talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we're going to be moving into talking about stories outside Africa this morning. Queen Elizabeth, of course, is one of the biggest stories, across the world.
Right now, of course, she was the longest reigning monarch in British history and the world's oldest head of state. She died at the age of 96. According to a statement from Buckingham Palace, the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral yesterday. Now, we have the statement there. It says the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. On her death, the Queen's eldest son and heir, Charles, the former Prince of Wales, has now become King of the United Kingdom and 14 Commonwealth realms.
We are all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country has grown and flourished under her reign. Britain is the great country it is today because of her. She ascended the throne just after the Second World War. She championed the development of the Commonwealth from a small group of 7 countries to a family of 56 nations, spanning every continent of the world. We are now a modern, thriving, dynamic nation. Through thick and thin, Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed. She was the very spirit of Great Britain.
Here's what King Charles had to say after the passing of his mother. In quotes, "The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and much loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and my change, my family and I would be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so wildly held."
The late Queen Elizabeth Alexandra Mary was born in London on the 21st of April 1926. At the time, no one expected her to be queen as she was third in line to the throne behind her uncle and father. In 1947, she married her wartime sweetheart, Prince Philip, at Westminster Abbey with a relatively simple ceremony as the country was still recovering from the war. Princess Elizabeth became queen in 1952 at the age of 25 when her father, King George VI, died. King George VI died, I beg your pardon. Her coronation took place 16 months at Westminster Abbey.
During her record-breaking reign, she dedicated her life to serving her country and the Commonwealth. The Queen held a number of other titles which were now automatically passed to her son and heir. She was head of the Commonwealth, Commander-in-Chief of the British Armed Forces, and Supreme Governor of the Church of England. She was also patron of more than 600 charities and organizations. New Central Chief Researcher, of course, Abdul Latif will be joining us much later to have a conversation about this. But of course, this is the biggest story across the world, and it's pretty similar to many other times when the world has had to deal with the passing of someone great. I remember when the Pope died some time ago, a couple of years ago. We had pretty much the same drama across the world. This for some people, like you said, was expected because she's 96.
Absolutely.
That's evening. Evening time for
actually,
a lot of people.
Evening and night for
Exactly.
a lot of people. She became the longest reigning monarch in 2015 in Britain and became the second longest reigning monarch in the world in 2022. Yeah. So, of course, we expected this, but still, it didn't take away the effect that it's had on many people around the world.
Yeah, and then yesterday we could already see. I was watching the news yesterday, and I could already see people gathering at Buckingham Palace. Immediately was mentioned that the family was gathering. They hadn't even declared that or put a statement that she had passed. But immediately there was a statement that the family was gathering, and Prince William, Prince Harry, everybody was moving to the Balmoral. British people were already gathering at Buckingham Palace, expecting the worst, it may have happened. But of course, at the same time, it's good to mention that the reactions haven't all been in mourning. There's also been very, very wild reactions from other parts of the world. Yesterday they said Black Twitter was on a roll yesterday, and same thing with Irish Twitter. If you also follow the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters in South Africa, put out a statement yesterday saying that they are not mourning the Queen, and so it's been a fair share. Definitely more people in mourning and sharing their goodwill with the British royal family, but there's been a pretty interesting amount of people who are not in mourning, who feel like the British Empire and the British government itself, and the crimes that they committed over time in the last century, basically. They basically blame the whole family and all of that for it. So
yeah.
It's a wide conversation, and I hope that Abdul Latif, when he joins us, we'll be able to talk a little bit about this, or a lot more about this at that time. So once again, Queen Elizabeth II, of course, has passed. She did become queen at the age of 25 in 1952 after her father died.